Today on the show, Radical Ones, we continue our video game summer and tackle one of Rob's favorite movies. It's the virtual reality horror game Brainscan from 1994.
Can't play it.
You mean you don't want to play it?
It's time to get radical.
It has begun!
This is where I start to have fun.
Well, excuse me, princess.
My name is Alice. I work for the Umbrella Corporation.
The day Bison graced your village was the most important day of your life. But for me, it was Tuesday.
Fatality.
Shadow Demon, you shall not pass.
Hey, paisanos, it's the Super Mario Brothers Super Show!
Finish him.
Welcome back, Radical Ones, to another episode of the Radical Retro Rewind podcast. As always, I am your host, Radical Ryan Hunter, here with Rob, the movie geek himself, for another episode of our video game summer. Hiya, Rob.
Hi, Ryan.
You started the Goldbergs. I am so excited about this. I've been wanting Rob to watch the Goldbergs for years. For Radical Ones that don't know, Rob is very into like binging shows, rewatching shows that he hadn't in a long time, and he watches them, straight through. He has 10 seasons of this show ahead of him. But can I just tell you, I am so excited.
Yeah, I just wrapped up a show called Amen with Sherman Hemsley, who's famously for the Jeffersons. After the Jeffersons, he did a show called Amen, which was about a church. And so I just finished that, never seen it before. It was really fun to finally watch that. I didn't get to as a child. And so now I binged the first part of that 90s show, second season. And now I'm on the Goldbergs, which is based on the 80s. So,
and Amen had another fantastic theme song. I mean, it's maybe not the Jeffersons, but that theme song is hot. That man knew how to have a show with a theme song.
No, yeah, I looked forward to that. I never fast forwarded the theme song. Never. Listen to it every single time. It is a banger.
And how many seasons was that, Rob?
It was 5. It was 5. Okay. All 22 episodes. Yeah. There was a little bit of a thing towards the last season. One of the cast members left to do another show, which only survived the first season. But it was actually an interesting plot called Married People. And it was just, it's kind of like Till Death, where, you just had variations of married people and the contrast. So it was 3 couples. One were veterans. Another was, sort of in the middle, but yet they were like kind of okay fighting. And then, of course, a new couple or whatever. And one of the secretary sisters from Amen left that to pursue
that's who it
this
was. Okay.
And didn't work out. So the last season, we didn't get one of them.
Was it one of those, like, pilots? What do they call it? Like, the soft pilot?
Actually, so it wasn't a spinoff. She left to just do her own thing.
Oh, that was it? Oh,
yeah. Yeah. So she didn't play the same character or anything.
Oh, got you. Okay.
Yeah, she just had another opportunity. The Goldbergs is amazing so far. I'm on episode 10, I think, right now. And what really gets me interested in the next one is to see the very end with these home videos, because they're very accurate to the episode that he's talking about. And it's wild that he has footage of every topic that he's brought up. I don't know if it lasts for the whole 10 years, but so far I love the fact that there is some heavy truth to these stories that we're hearing, and it's not complete fiction from the writer's room. But this family is just so wholesome. It's so wild how they look out for each other even though they fight the whole time. But I love everyone's anger. I love everyone's outbursts. Everyone is funny, and I don't know, there's something about little wins in this family that I get very excited for.
I love this.
The episode always sets them up to just be such underdogs, and when they get that moment of triumph, every single member it's a joy. It is a joy. So yeah, so far I'm really enjoying it. It is not what I expected. I did not expect this. So
so you were expecting something else, like maybe
Yeah.
like a 90s show or a
just
like that.
I kind of had an idea that it was gonna be funny, and it is funny. I mean, I think it's funnier than maybe what I thought, but there's just this wholesome side to it that I just like the way the story is being told, and that's something that I didn't expect. I expected more of a sitcom traditionally. I don't know. There's something just different about what I'm watching, and I just dig every minute of it. So far so good.
So we will keep track with this because he's got a long way to go. Can I just tell you, it's one of those shows I feel like that gets better and better. So I am so excited for you. And I don't know if you feel this yet, because I think I started feeling this in the first season, but there comes a point when there's so much emotion, usually by the end of these episodes, like you're saying, and these wins for the family. I used to say every episode feels like a season finale, because they always give you like those heart feelings by the end of this episode, even if the family's throwing things and, you know.
There's definitely a bookend, and that's what's also a little interesting. We haven't really hit too much of a storyline that carries on to the next.
Yes.
Whether it's dating someone, like the pilot had Grandpa kind of like lose his mind a little bit, and he almost got into an accident. Well, he got into an accident with these two kids.
Yeah.
And so I thought the whole premise was him joining the family because he needed to be taken care of. Well, he still has his own home. He's still out there driving. He's still out there. So they kind of just forgot about that.
Wow, I forgot that was the pilot him. Yeah, he's very capable later on. Like, yeah.
and as far as everything else, yes, there's continuity with what they do for work and blah, blah, blah. But like the Kremps were just introduced, and I'm sure we'll see them. I'm sure we'll see them again, but you know, Chad is Adam's best friend. I'm sure the daughter's going to date the older brother at some point, but we haven't really reached a continuation. It's still intro. Let's tackle another topic. Let's do this topic, but nothing has carried over yet. So I'm sure over the time we'll start to get that. That's when I really get invested. But right now they're just having fun, and I'm okay with that.
Oh, I'm so excited. I will be asking Rob throughout our future episodes, Radical Ones, so please stick with us with that.
Now that I have your attention, please allow me to introduce myself. My name is Trickster.
What was that film you were watching?
Death.
Death.
Part 2.
Oh, Lord.
Michael's seen it.
Go for it, man.
Done it. Played it.
Look, I've played them all.
And just when he thought he'd die of boredom,
Brainscan, the ultimate experience in interactive terror.
Never leave home without it.
You're in the game, man. You're in control.
You must think like a killer. Cover up any clues. Leave no witnesses, no evidence.
a challenge he can't resist.
It was so real. It was sick.
See, I told you, man. I told you it would blow your mind.
A game he can't escape.
There was a grisly murder in the quiet suburban town of Mountview today.
So you did it.
What was on that disc?
It's not a game anymore.
Hamilton and Hayden.
It's real.
It wasn't supposed to be real.
Real, unreal, what's the difference?
I didn't kill the man. I didn't even know him.
You're in this now. You won't survive on your own. You started this and now you're afraid to finish it, just like you're afraid of everything else.
I won't kill her. Shoot her.
Play it. The witness has to die.
Edward Furlong, Frank Langella, and introducing T. Ryder Smith as the trickster. Brainscan.
I can't wait to see what you do next.
Now, video game summer is here, and we have our very own game master. He just threw himself a birthday party where he hosted game shows. It looked like a lot of fun. He had a lot of people over. Brainscan is so Rob. I want to really give this episode to him. It's Brainscan 1994.
Thank you.
Horror films and computer games fascinate teenage Michael, and a CD-ROM that portrays murder from the killer's point of view combines these interests. The first time Michael plays it, he kills a stranger and cuts off a foot. Thinking the events take place in virtual reality, by the next day, Michael finds the foot in his refrigerator. The cyber ghoul trickster emerges from the program and forces him to keep playing and to continue committing violent crimes. Rob, I will just say this is our time in America and probably the world where video games, there was a video game scare, right? It was in Congress. People were talking about how violent Mortal Kombat was. This is, I feel like, such a product of that. I will hand this to Rob now. Where do you want to go first with this movie?
Well, you mentioned the premiere, it was April 22nd or 24th, and it is 1994, so this is their 30th anniversary.
Oh, damn. So, yes, so April, May, 30th.
Yeah, this was 30 years. Let me just say the struggle and stress of being able to watch this movie 30 years ago. Let me tell you, it took 4 attempts to watch this movie at the theater. I was obviously too young to go on my own, and this was supposed to be a movie that me and my brother were going to go to together because we are into games. And so it took 4 times because he kept flaking and something coming up and just really finding any reason to be like, oh, we'll go another time. And I'm talking literally on the way there. We're in the car.
On the way there!
And like something happens and they got to be like, nope, we can't do it now. If I remember correctly, I probably cried at one point because I was just like, I want to see this damn movie. I just want to see it.
Why was fate keeping you away from this movie?
I don't know, but we finally saw it and I was so happy and I loved every minute of it. The advancement in technology that I was able to witness in this movie was insane, and just the horror side of it too. It blew my mind. And so this movie has become such a comfort for me. I know a lot of people have their definition of what a comfort movie is. Generally speaking, most people would look at this as a film that might not, especially with a horror film, it's supposed to scare you, it's supposed to creep you out. You don't really have moments where you can just watch it anytime, or you're only supposed to watch it during a certain part or a mood or whatever. A comfort movie just makes you happy. It just gets you in a good mood, no matter what the genre is. And this is just one of those movies. Do I watch it a lot? Not really, but this is a film that I can literally turn on in the background and not pay attention to it, right?
Because you know it so well too.
Exactly. This is a movie that I can fall asleep to if I really wanted to. This is a movie that I can watch regardless what mood I'm in. I don't care what's going on. If I wanted to just watch Brainscan, I can watch it. I actually have absolutely no problem showing this to any friend.
Good.
I will always recommend it, and if they hate it, they hate it. But I have no qualms. I have no reservations. If somebody were to tell me this is not their type of movie, I'm still going to be like, watch it. I don't care.
Have you actually had anyone over the years watch it and go, oh no, I didn't like that?
Sure. There were people I think were being generous and not really giving me their full scope. I think initially there was no reason to hate this movie, but there was no reason to bash it either. So they were just like, it's all right. They'll leave. They enjoyed the company. They'll never think about it again. And that's fine.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Honestly, I think that there's just a right amount of camp but still makes it an authentic horror film.
Oh, yes.
There are some that will definitely review this movie and think, oh, I'm going to hate watch this, or, oh, let's rip it apart for its acting and whatever. And most of those people are probably speaking their truth. And, as I was listening to a lot of interviews from the people who worked on this, almost every single one of them was like, this is not like a work of art, right? Like they know the movie that they have.
What they're making, yeah.
Yeah, they had an opportunity to make something that has not been really told that much. Their vision, their way of technology and how it relates to them and how it relates to somebody like Michael. They made the film and it's out there. Done. That's what this is. And I appreciate this movie. I can't help it. There is just a huge soft spot for this movie, but I don't think I could ever get anybody to agree to this, but there is a fan base out there.
I mean, just from researching a little bit, when this was coming up, there is a lot of love for this movie. And I'm so glad that it seems to have garnered, I guess it's a cult following, but it's appreciated. And I got to tell you, like, I can't even remember when I saw this. I feel like it was in between being a kid and an adult. So like teenage years.
Mm-hmm.
Only saw it once, never thought about it again. And I'm so sorry for that, Rob, because it is so good. I couldn't get over how much fun I was having with this movie.
Listen carefully. For the next 2 hours, you're going to experience mind program entry. That's a powerful force, not unlike hypnosis, transmitted through the television's blanking signal. It's going to alter your reality.
Who the hell are you?
Take this seriously, Michael. You'll be watching a brutal murder through the eyes of a killer, and you'll affect his actions. It won't be pretty.
No kidding.
There is one limitation. You must stalk and kill within the time limit of the program.
Like a video game, right?
Video games are ancient history. This is the first disc in a series of 4. If time runs out, you'll not be allowed to play the next disc. That could be extremely dangerous. Do not let that happen. One final detail. You must think like a killer. Cover up any clues. Leave no witnesses, no evidence. And most importantly, enjoy the fear.
Yeah, you sent me a text saying that you really loved it. And I mean, that's pretty much what we're going to go through today.
Yeah.
Is to really engage with someone who had never, who hadn't seen it in a while.
Oh, yeah, long time.
I am very curious what exactly kept you enthralled or what gave this impact as to you liking it so much. What was it that stood out to you?
I felt like it was very fresh. I mean, that could be just because it was once and done, but it felt fresh. It felt fun. It gave me feelings of, I mean, Are You Afraid of the Dark? And things like that, but in an adult version. The plot was mysterious enough. Is Michael committing these crimes? How much of it is him? How much of it is our villain? What is actually happening here? And I think as someone who grew up in that time, like we did, it captured the feelings of the 90s and being a 90s kid who loves horror and being that outsider. So just those alone were great, refreshing aspects for me.
Yeah, I was reading a little bit of the sort of reviews and critiques on this, and a lot of people, I shouldn't say a lot, but I read more than enough to point out what you just did, is that this movie is a little bit of a time capsule in a way.
Yeah.
Some of the effects are definitely dated, but I think this movie just captured a certain block of time that were just amazing and but also very questionable. It's sort of like a turning point, just a little bit in technology. I mean, we hadn't really talked too much about virtual reality outside of Tron. I mean, you had a controller in your hand. That was it. Like CD-ROM, all of these things as special effects and graphics were growing. This movie definitely showed how the rich live, for one. And
that 90s a perfect room, like the 90s kids room that you want, where everything is so cool. I
was obsessed with his room. He had state-of-the-art everything.
Igor, dial 1-800-555-FEAR.
Hey, Master.
And Igor, no calls.
No, that's a great start. And we'll definitely get into details as to where this likeness comes from. But I just want to let everyone know there are a few reviews out there of this movie. We are not the only ones who have heard of this movie and thought that this should be a full episode. I want you guys, before we get into spoilers and describing more in detail, you can watch this on Tubi. Now, I think that when this episode posts, it might be expired.
That damn Tubi.
Yeah, I know.
They give you and they take it away.
I did see a little note that said that it expires in 3 days. So I don't know if it'll be available anymore.
I noticed that there's a lot of copies on YouTube. I don't know the quality, but...
You can definitely try to watch it on YouTube. Maybe it's on Crackle. I don't know if it'll transition somewhere else. I want all of you to give this a try before listening to our full review.
Yes.
Also, I think that if you were to listen to other reviews of this movie in contrast to ours, you'll see that it's not just a complete one and done, like everybody views this one way, whether it's good or bad. This movie, I think, is complex enough to reach, different minds, and we'll just interpret this in a different way. What I will say is the ending will throw you for a loop. It's something that could either piss you off and you'll hate this movie forever, or you'll just be that enthralled to figure out what is going on.
Do you have a take on that ending and what happened?
We will talk about that for sure.
Because I have questions.
This is the moment, though. Please stop this. Try and watch the film. It's great if you have context while we're talking about this. There's no huge twist or anything like that, but at the same time, you'll have a better understanding of what we're talking about today after watching it. So from here on out, we're going to go into detail.
Danger, Will Robinson! Danger! No, Will Robinson!
You are now entering the spoiler zone.
Danger!
Welcome back, Radical Ones, right? Yeah.
That's right. Okay, so if I'm not mistaken, this might have been Edward Furlong's first leading role since Terminator.
Yep, that's what it seemed like.
He was still in his heartthrob era, and why not give him his own movie, right? Small little rinky-dink horror film. He's the lead. They don't put anybody else's name up. It's just him.
That was a choice. I noticed that. Not even Frank Langella.
And this is how, contained this movie is. It doesn't really have a gigantic world. And I think that was the point. One of the biggest themes, if not the biggest theme of this movie, is isolation. It's really just capturing what it means to really remove yourself from the real world, from actual reality, as this loner kid is literally playing a virtual reality game. His world is through his technology. A lot of his interactions is through the telephone. His mother unfortunately passes away in a car accident which he was involved in. This gave this kid a lot of trauma, but the riches that he has in New Jersey, in this home, which also feels a little isolated, is funded by his father, who travels for work all the time. We get glimpses of him in photographs, but this man is not in this movie. He is literally gone on business for the entire film.
I'll be back in a few days. I know I said it would be sooner, but I'm sorry. And I love you, Mike.
He's a voice on an answer machine.
Exactly. And so this kid really doesn't have anything. He has one friend. He only needs one friend.
And what a friend.
I love him. And oh my God, there's so much about him. Yeah. He has a crush on his next door neighbor.
Who's 37. I love to bring that up. My God.
Yeah, her name is Kimberly. And instead of talking to her, he feels that it's best to infatuate her from afar. But not only that, video record her from their neighboring windows. And so instead of interacting, they'd rather just look at each other. So again, this is very isolating, right? Yes. And he clearly has chosen to put more of his world into video games. I wanted to ask you this. Fangoria is a big thing that kind of pops up throughout the movie. Do you remember reading Fangoria?
All the time. This spoke to me, Rob.
Yeah.
This spoke to me so much. I used to love going through that magazine and seeing the movies that were coming out and reading about it.
Yeah.
And the fact that this had a 1-800 number too, the call for everything about this, yes. Please save the printed magazine of Fangoria magazine, please. So good.
So yeah, they get right to the point, and his friend Kyle is reading about this new interactive game, Brainscan. And so he calls the number to try and figure out what the big deal is. And then for some reason, there's this beam that rushes over him as if he was about to get taken over by aliens.
Yes.
And because of this beam, the game has already picked the theme. We will deliver the first disc momentarily. monetarily.
Literally.
And so
Literally.
these games are specifically tailored to the actual mind as they create whatever reality you're supposed to be in. And so a couple of theories, and I think what we're supposed to pick up on this is before he orders the game, he passes by a crime scene of a neighboring home, and he has his first interaction with lead detective. I forget his name at the moment. I've watched this so many times. I keep calling him Langella, so that's why I don't really care.
Exactly.
I don't care who his character's name is.
Detective Hayden.
Detective Hayden. Okay, so we have our first interaction with Detective Hayden, and so in his mind we've got a crime scene, right? He loves horror, blood and guts, blah 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 blah. So, anyways, would you play an interactive game like Brainscan and think sort of in the mind of before actually playing it? Is this something that you would be interested in?
Igor, dial 1-800-555-FEAR.
Yes, Master.
Well, here goes nothing.
I would, but you know what? I'd be probably so terrified because if it is custom to your fears and things that you like, I can't even imagine what this game would be for me.
I think this game would be so much fun. I mean, do I know that I'm gonna have to kill somebody? No, I don't. I don't know if I would do that. But like horror for me, I'm a huge fan of it from a third person point of view. I don't like haunts. I don't like horror escape rooms. I don't like being in the forefront of the horror. I like to watch. But given the fact that he was able to play this game without a VR helmet or glasses, like it was literally hypnotizing him into the game, which was an interesting way of technology that I didn't even know existed. So there's a little bit of like a fantastical thing to this.
Was it part of, because he dialed the number, right? Every time he was about to play, but I felt like that was the activation almost.
Yes. Activating this, you needed to call the number in order for the game to turn on, and then it was just you and the television. That was it. So basically, his game was death by design. He had 2 hours to complete a crime, mostly murder, and he randomly stumbled onto this house once he was in the game and went in, grabbed a weapon. He was guided by a voice who sort of told him where to go and what to do.
On the right. That's it. Inside. Choose one.
And then he went ahead and killed this guy. And then the voice was like a little creativity. And then he decides to cut off a foot that had a tattoo on it.
Yes.
And so he cuts the foot off and then he goes home. He ends his round. He had maybe 13 minutes to spare. He completed the crime. Done. He loves the game, right? Loves it. And this is going on while there is a party next door where Miss Kimberly invited all the whole school over. But he decides not to go and decides to play this game. So he plays the game, has a great time. He's immersed in it. And then the very next day he goes to school and finds out that this murder that he committed in the game happened in real life. He saw images of the murder scene and noticed that it was someone in his neighborhood, and he freaks out.
Who killed that man? What was on that disc?
The murder. What else? For a minute there, I didn't think you'd go through with it. When he got up and started dancing around the room. Classic.
How do you know?
I was there. When you cut off his foot, it was art. It was magic.
It wasn't supposed to be real!
Real, unreal, what's the difference? So long as you don't get caught.
Ryan, did you know this was happening in the movie? Did you know that that's what this movie was going to be about when you watched it? If you remembered exactly sort of what the whole, the theme of the movie is?
I thought it was going to be more of him in a virtual reality, like a haunt, like you were saying almost. So this murder aspect and almost like a murder mystery being solved, no, not at all.
Okay. So yeah, now you find out that you, just playing a game, committed actual murder.
That is something. Because the foot is in the refrigerator, as the synopsis said. So the foot with the tattoo is in the refrigerator. And
yeah, he finds out that the murder is actually real and that he was the one that did it because he finds the foot in the fridge. So now he's freaking out. He has to figure out what to do next. But now the game is telling him, you are not done. You have to continue. And you are going to have to keep playing because there was a witness. Yada yada.
Kyle wasn't a witness. He didn't even see anything.
Not a witness in the strictest sense. He knew things about you.
Kyle was my only friend.
And you pissed him off. Nice going, Michael. Got anything to eat?
That could be taken, I felt like, Rob, two ways. Like, is the trickster telling the truth, or is he trying just to get you to play the game again?
That's the thing about this, right? Like, we're not exactly sure sort of the origin of this game, its mission. Are they just collecting souls? Like, what is the deal, right? We don't necessarily get an answer to that. But what I will say is that this movie, it talks about sort of the love of horror, the love of the adrenaline, the love of fear, and then when it's presented to you, now you don't want anything to do with it. This is exactly what you asked for. The game is giving you the immense fear that you so requested, and now you are in the thick of it, right? And so he's now being like, oh, you know, horror's supposed to be fake, it's not supposed to be real, and, you know, it's supposed to be dumb, and blah, blah, blah.
If there's a difference, okay? There's a big difference. Just doesn't make any sense.
Doesn't have to make sense. All these horror movies you watch. Does death make sense? No, it's not about sense. It's about death.
He can't make sense of it, and he doesn't understand like why this is all coming to play. He's like, all the horror films you watch, do they have to make sense? No.
Exactly.
This is the exact same thing. And so Trickster, the voice from the game, the sort of icon and mascot of the game, manifests itself into his world. And now he sort of plays this guide, this game master, this, I don't want to say sidekick, but this advisor, this influencer to help him through this process of committing and getting away with the perfect murder. And so this trickster guy who has a very rock, heavy metal,
1000%
leather sort of motif, think Ozzy Osbourne, think, you know, actually, I read that his makeup and his style was reminiscent of Keith Richards, just like he was
does he have long fingers like that?
I know, right? No, but just like how he was inspiration for Jack Sparrow, like, you know who that is, right?
Yep.
And so that, and I want you guys to look him up, like Brainscan Trickster. You can get an idea of what we're talking about.
The hair.
Trickster is played by T. Ryder Smith. Like, if you were to watch behind the scenes stuff, completely different man. Like, glasses, he looks a little nerdy. He's very professional, and then he just does the most zany, quirky stuff. I love the Trickster, and I think that there was potential for a new horror icon here. He was so unique, so different, so well-spoken. Like, he was very teetering on the Freddy Krueger vibe, where he was very scary looking, but also witty and hilarious, but still was very menacing and terrorizing. You know, like, all of it fit. He could have easily been an icon.
It's so sad because of the missed opportunity, because it's not like 90s, the video game craze ended. We're 30 years later, and we're just getting to, like, virtual reality and things almost close to this. So the potential was crazy. Matter of fact, our friends Siskel and Ebert, no, actually, I think it was the replacement at that point, but Ebert said that he felt like this was supposed to be the makings of franchise. And the new partner, maybe it was Roper or something, said, and I don't want to see it because I hated it, of course. But just really quickly, at first I was getting Beetlejuice, right? I was getting Maurice from Little Monsters.
Sure,
I was getting Drop Dead Fred. But the thing I really liked about this character, Rob, is he's wacky, but he's subdued. He's not so over the top that you're like, oh my God, shut up. It was the perfect balance of menacing and just a great look.
100% agree. I love that take. And I got a bit of light Ryuk from Death Note. I don't know if you guys know
Death Note, yeah.
Death Note, you know, Light discovers this book. Any name he writes in it, they will die. But the owner of the Death Note notebook was owned by a I want to say he was just like a demon or a demigod or you know, and Ryuk, and I hope I'm saying that name right, he or she or they came off more as a he, but Ryuk basically was bored. He just wanted to have fun, cause some chaos, and just he's a really big people watcher. He's sort of enthralled about how humans interact with each other and deal with certain things, especially fear. And for me, I think that's what the trickster was doing. I think that this is what gravitates him with this game and messing with anyone who plays it. I think he just gets a fascination of creating chaos and just watching people squirm and be scared and commit murder and all of that stuff. That's kind of the vibe that I got from Trickster.
See, that gives him a motive, because my biggest thing is, I always want to know why. Why is the person doing this? And there has to be something about he gets off on this in a way. Like, he gets something from this. Is it energy? Is it like you're saying, watching humans and seeing how they interact? There is that part of he's working with you.
No, of course. And that's the whole thing about it. Like, this game is augmented to your specific reality, your take on the world, your fears. All of that is being channeled into Trickster, and Trickster is working with all that information to really make you understand what true fear is like and what it is that you need to do in order to get through it.
Trust me, Michael. I only want what you want. Buddies forever.
So our writer, or at least one of our writers, our main writer is Andrew Kevin Walker. And so he wrote this film and basically sort of handed it off. And then some of the story was tweaked by a guy named Brian Owens. So not all of his ideas ended up in the movie.
Okay.
But he was the person to write this whole thing. And from him, he stated that Trickster as a character was only supposed to be a voice over the phone. So anytime he played the game or called the number, he would speak to Trickster via voice. That was it. And the same actor was hired just to do the voice. But the studio was like, we need a character. And it's not even for like merchandise purposes. They were just like, we need something visual. We need sort of an icon, right? Because horror icons, we're creating more characters for people to like. We need something. And so then came the task of, blah, blah, blah. So the actor was like, yeah, I'll do this role, blah, blah, blah. And then they called him back and they were like, are you allergic to makeup at all? And so, because we're going to have to put a lot of makeup on you. And so thus the creation of Trickster. So we almost didn't get him.
I mean, seeing him, I'm glad we did, because I think it's a fantastic design. But that voice on the phone aspect is actually very creepy if you think about it. Now, it would have been a completely different movie, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And maybe not as memorable, but But see, that adds to the mystery of why is this happening? Who is this person? So I kind of like that.
Yeah. All right, so just veering off the story just for a little bit, I want to get more out of what Ryan thinks of the movie. So we mentioned Kyle. Kyle is the most lovable human being, just full of joy. He knows exactly who he is. He takes no qualms about it. He's not ashamed. He is a horror-loving, just ball of sunshine.
Yeah, Michael! Hey, Dick, I've been calling all day. Did you skip school?
No, I got mono.
That's harsh. Anything I can do?
Nah, it's all right.
Can I come in?
Well, Kyle, I don't think it's such a good idea right now.
Okay.
Listen, I have to get going. I have to go to bed and all,
Hey, did you hear about the murder?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, having a murder in our own neighborhood and everything.
Kyle, a guy just died, and you think that's cool?
No, I don't mean cool, but it's interesting.
Forget it, I'll see you.
Hey, listen, Michael, listen. If you're gonna be late up, and I'll have it let me borrow the Brainscan disc.
Kyle, asshole, will you get off my back about that?
No. If you don't want to let me see it, if you just want to be a jerk-off about it, just say it. Just say so. That's all.
Bye, Kyle.
You look at him and you think, oh, the denim jacket and all the pins. You like all the devil's music. But this is the most sweetest, sensitive boy. He loves his friendship with Michael. They have this thing where they say goodbye by saying best friends forever. That is their thing. It is the dorkiest thing ever. But when you look at the two of them, you think that they're hooligans because of their fan of horror films and things like that.
Yes.
And Kyle is just the most lovable human being ever. What was your thoughts on Kyle?
Matter of fact, to continue our teenagers older, it says he was 27 when he played teenage Kyle. He won me over 100% by the time I found out that he made a petition to get Michael's horror club back at the school. They just had a fight, and what does this friend do? He's thinking about his friend, and he goes around and makes a damn petition to get the horror club back. That was just like, Kyle, I love you. Do not die.
Kyle came to my house last night. He brought me this. He started a petition to restart the horror club. He said you guys had a fight. And he wanted me to bring it to you personally.
So Kyle is played by actor Jamie Galen. He's been in some stuff here and there. I remember him from a commercial that he did a while back ago, but I really like this actor. I like Kyle. I kind of had a friend like him. So have you ever been in a moment where you just kind of have something and you not necessarily gatekeep it, but it's just like, I have this over you, or I know something that you don't, or whatever. And so when he gets the game, he's describing it and he loves it. And he's like, oh my God, this game's best. He's like, well, let me borrow it. And it's like, well, no, I want to play it some more. Like, I don't want us to be equals. Yes. I want to have this thing. I don't know. It gets a little, because he starts being like, can I borrow it now? Just let me have it? And then he gets, angry about it. Clearly, Michael was trying to protect him. But in Kyle's eyes, he's just like, oh, you're just gatekeeping right now. And you just want to be the only one with the cool game. So screw you and blah, blah, blah.
And meanwhile, he was the one that even brought up the game in the first place and told him to get it. But that's when you're like, damn, poor Kyle thinks that he's being left out. Because you would play this with your friend if this was like a normal thing that you didn't have to worry about being caught for a murder,
Yeah. They run this horror club together at school, but it gets banned for its graphic and violence, and the principal will not reinstate it unless he approves the next thing that he wants to show. So there's a little bit of a controversy or enemy with that character as well. But Kyle is great. Now, this is a spoiler. The witness that he needed to take out in the next disc just happened to be Kyle. Now, we don't know this until after it's been completed, the murder, because I guess they just wanted us to be surprised as to who it was. What was your take on Michael being the witness, even though we didn't see him there during the murder? Like, why would he be the witness?
That irked me. I didn't know if it was just... I felt like it was almost just said just to have him kill his best friend.
Okay.
Because I felt like Kyle would have been like, Michael, what did you do? Why did you go there? Why did you do this? That part I was just like, maybe we could have seen something on screen. I get it, maybe why they didn't do it, but some things. What did he see?
So what do you think? Why do you think that they didn't show his death?
I have a feeling that they wanted it to be a shock. That it was like, oh my God, did he just kill his best friend? Because we see the necklace thing. That's how I took it.
Yeah, the souvenir that was taken wasn't a foot, but it was actually a necklace that was, mentioned and focused in one of the scenes.
Put it in the damn freezer again. What was with the freezer was the plot for this?
Just the way to hide it. Did you feel it was a cheap shot, or was it integral to the plot? Yes, it definitely created shock value, but did you think it was a cheap shot, or did it make sense that he would be the next victim to go, as this is kind of a slasher?
You got to get rid of the people closest to the main character, right? So it does make sense to me that Kyle would be killed. Much like the third victim. I was like, okay, I know where this is going now.
So, I didn't mind that Kyle had to go. I think the movie was trailing more of him being even more isolated.
Yes, with his mono, by the way. That was the excuse he gave at school. He had mono, and this kid never went to school, evidently.
But it turns out that people found that Kyle was so lovable and friendly and likable that they did not want his death to be seen on screen.
Oh, so was it shot? Do you know?
No, I don't believe it was shot. If it was, they didn't mention anything about it, but they decided that they did not want us to visually see him go.
Well, thank you.
So that's why it had to happen off screen.
I could appreciate that because I gotta tell you, past the first murder, this is not like a gory film.
Not really, no. And I think, again, with the special effects, it kind of takes some of that away. And so you're not as creeped out by it. But even the actor, Jamie, like, he would have loved to have seen a death, scene. And, Edward is like, that would have actually made this movie a lot more badass. But I guess they really just didn't want to disappoint a lot of viewers if they were to see that.
Edward Furlong, you just brought him up. I gotta tell you, I was never a fan of this kid. Only because in Terminator 2, to me as a kid, he came off so whiny. I know we're supposed to see ourselves in like his hero, but never liked him. I really enjoyed him in this movie, but I gotta tell you, he looks exactly nowadays how I felt like he would have aged. Because he has that baby face usually, and he's kind of like really aged, but he's still got this baby face. It's so crazy. It's like those random people we see from 80s sitcoms that were kids, and we're like, oh, you look just like you would have, but just grown up. I can't describe it, but do you have any feelings like his acting? What was he in Pecker and American
He did a Crow movie.
Oh, he did. Was it Crow 3 or something?
Yeah, he did a Crow film. Yes, he was in American History X, which I think was pretty much his best film that he's ever made.
You wanted the ultimate experience in terror? Well, terror's in the doing. It's not watching horror films like some child, and it's not spying on Kimberly. You get off on that, Michael. I love her. It could be any girl in any window, and you know it.
I won't kill her!
She'll tell!
She won't, just still come to me first!
Like last time.
Stop this!
Only you can stop this! Her life or yours! Choose!
Yeah, I didn't have too much investment in Eddie Furlong. I mean, I obviously knew who he was, right?
Yeah.
I don't think I was really obsessed with him to be like, oh, I want to be him, or I'm so jealous of him. He's an icon.
He's not Macaulay Culkin.
Yeah, I mean, he's just another actor who, just happens to have his spotlight in the year that he was in. And, Terminator 2 definitely highlighted this kid and this character to be such an important part of the world.
Right.
I mean, it made sense that, he was sort of a Luke Skywalker for that particular time. And, like Eddie Furlong technically was John Connor. He was no longer Eddie Furlong, to be honest.
That's very true.
And if he didn't have that, it just kind of faded away. I didn't necessarily follow him in his real life to know exactly if there was a slump or what happened, but
yeah, I think unfortunately the same things, drug and alcohol and things like that.
Yeah, so unfortunately his career didn't take off too much. And Brainscan did flop, right? So I mean, I wouldn't blame it all on him. I still think that Eddie Furlong did an amazing job leading this movie, but like you said, it was a lot of whining. There was a lot of angst and emo and all of that stuff.
I think he just says it on his face. He has a face that looks like he's in constant mortification, as I would say. Like he's just always, and my one thing that I did see from this, Rob, which you probably have, it says that the director, though, thought he was a 15-year-old kid that couldn't act. You had to slap him awake every morning. I don't want to get into knocking people, but I am not a big Eddie Furlong fan. I gotta tell you, I didn't see that in this.
I didn't see that either. I mean, at least for me, I didn't see that. But I mean, because the film is so contained, there wasn't too much asked of him. And
no, yes, exactly.
There were a lot of moments throughout the film where he had to get rid of the evidence, and then also, get away with getting rid of the evidence, having to hide in certain places, avoid people. At some point in the movie, there was a neighborhood watch, so there was a lot of people out there just sort of like combing the forest in the neighborhood that they were in. And him, with the car accident, created a limp on his leg. Like one of his legs don't work that well because of a knee surgery. And so he's got this limp, and it's very distinguished. Like you can tell, by fingerprints that somebody has a limp or something, and he can't run as fast. And
it's so funny because that is one thing when they mentioned the limp, there was parts that I felt like he might have forgotten he had a limp. But that's okay because, it happens when you're acting. But the limp, yes, because we saw that that shot of him walking away from or crawling away from the car that his mother died. Yeah. So the limp was supposed to be like a character thing.
I want to talk briefly about the special effects, the practical effects, the things that we kind of saw throughout the movie. What did you think about what you saw visually, like digitally, or even the prosthetic makeup stuff?
The makeup is amazing. The makeup to me holds up fantastic. And I'm kind of a CGI critic usually on this show. I mean, we brought up Raiden's Thunder and stuff in our last episodes, but honestly, I know it's dated, but I was okay with every CGI graphic in this movie.
Especially just remembering that it was 94, right?
94, and it honestly didn't look that bad. When Trickster first comes in that ball of light, I was okay with that.
And what I love about it too, it's light, but it also has sort of this like colorful rainbow glow of a CD disc.
Yes, yeah, great point.
I do love that. Yeah, I mean, there were times where the Trickster would sort of like harm himself just to kind of show that he's not of this world. He bent all of his fingers back and cracked them. He gouged his eyes out. There's blood running through his face, things like that.
They could bust my fingers one by one, by one, by one. They could dig out my eyes.
And of course, like our initial kill in the game was, kind of bloody.
Yes.
That was kind of horrifying to watch, the multiple stabs in his back. I thought all of that was great. With the digital stuff, when towards the end when he's like eating him and, he stabs him and then part of his guts, grabs the electric current that merges that, all of that stuff.
The electric I was okay with for whatever reason I was okay with, but yes.
Yeah.
But then that prosthetic where you get that elongated mouth that he gets sucked in looks so good. Like, that should be in Fangora magazine.
Yeah, I didn't mind the special effects in this either. And again, like I said, it is dated, but I'm able to separate that kind of stuff. And I didn't mind it. One thing that I will bring up is, unfortunately, we had a very risky scene that the movie tried to do. And movies do this all the time. Yeah. They have these ideas. They go through buckets of money just to see it executed, and honestly, you don't have any idea if the idea is going to work until you actually execute it. And unfortunately, they tried to build this monstrous like merging of Trickster and Michael into this, mutated, just think The Fly, right? It was just like this big monstrous thing that had like two heads, multiple teeth, tongues, everything, limbs where they're not supposed to be. And this thing was attacking our damsel, Kimberly. And while they were trying to do it, it was all prosthetic, it was puppeteering, but it was so heavy, it just didn't work. And I think throughout the tone of the film, you don't really get a monster movie. You don't get a slasher movie. This is very psychological. This is very in tune with more of like feeling rather than trying to like scare you. It just didn't fit and they had to scrap it all.
Now, Rob sent me this earlier today.
And you can watch it.
See, this is why I love places like YouTube and people who get these pieces of history that are missing from any film. Yeah, it looked like there was going to be even a transformation sequence because, like Rob was saying, this prosthetic had 3 faces and they were like, first face, second face, and he was turning his face, and then the third face. I wonder what it would have looked like with that theatrical filming because the behind the scenes thing must have been like someone's, camcorder on the set. They're talking to Kimberly and things like, playing around and things. But part of me wishes we could have seen this full transformation. Because what we got was Michael, after he's, mixed with the Trickster, he has like this veiny kind of face with like, is it like contacts?
Yeah. So like
more realistic.
A third of his face is sort of indicating that the Trickster is sort of possessing him in a way, right?
Right.
Like it's time to finish this game, kill our last witness, and be done with this. So one other thing is I'll point out, we talked about how Kyle was a witness and then eventually Kimberly was a witness, right? Now, they were definitely picked because what better way to scare you than to have to kill the people that you care about, right? Like, that was clearly a test for him. But this is why I think that they were witnesses. They witnessed this kid continue to isolate himself even more. It wasn't that they literally witnessed him kill someone or bury evidence. It was the fact that they noticed him continuing to pull away and be very suspicious and just isolating himself. The way he freaked out in Kimberly's house when he saw the thing,
that would have been like, the parents should have been like, Kimberly, you got some problems going on?
But there's also his anger issues and just the way that he has treated them and the fact that he had a fight with Kyle. Like, Kimberly was very witness to all of this. Yes, they're going to point out that this kid's kind of troubled.
The kids at school said he was a... So what, did they call him a freak? Or
kind
freaky
of,
or something? Or scary or something they called him.
You were described as, what was that word they used, Sergeant?
Frightening.
Frightening. And strange and weird. Freak came up a couple of times.
So I think this is kind of where it comes in, like after Michael does that whole escapade and he accidentally kills the principal and all of that stuff, he comes home and Kimberly sees him in the window. That was it. That's all that we needed.
Oh, can I just mention, you might feel bad in the beginning of this movie because Michael's recording this half boobs of Kimberly, but the woman is a freak herself because we found out she's a stalker too. She's been taking photos of him. Okay, this is supposed to be romantic and things like that, I guess.
Well, again, it just sort of gives you that little preview of like what's going on right now, which is where I wanted to take this conversation. We are so used to our series and our TikToks and our ways of communication, whether it's through texting or voice messaging. Nobody wants to talk on the phone anymore, but now we're still sort of getting into this realm of like, we don't need to see each other until we need to see each other. And it's this idea that even neighbors would rather communicate their feelings through technology rather than just sitting in a room talking to each other and telling each other how they feel. We're watching this, and I was going to ask you what your feelings were that this gigantic camera was literally faced in this window. I mean, she had to have known. And there were moments where she looked and she was like, I know this man's looking at me. And they would rather play this type of game than to actually talk to each other. Did it change your views on Michael? Did you still see him as a protagonist with that type of...
But let me tell you though, I gotta say, he grew up at the end and he said, you know what, I'm done with this fake reality. I want to ask her out. And she's still playing Rob. So...
I know, she said maybe. What is this? And then gave him a kiss on the cheek.
So she is still in that mindset. So I think he outgrew her maybe in a way.
I just wanted to ask one thing.
Okay?
Please, will you go out with me?
I don't think so. I mean, I'll think about it. It's not really a good time to ask, you know what I mean?
You'll think about it.
Yes. But...
maybe, right? Not now. Maybe.
She'd rather stay in that, I'm gonna film you, you film me, and things like that. No, but by the end, I was like, okay, I think he's out of his funk. I think he's going to be an upstanding member of society. And maybe his father came back.
Yeah, so with that being said, we have Michael's room. Oh my God. Okay, so
yes,
he had this. So it was a box television, right? So not as advanced, but here's the thing.
It looked good at the time, I'm sure.
The screen was widescreen. It was a widescreen television.
Yes.
That is amazing. Speakers all around, right? He had the biggest stereo, obviously tons of music, but the kicker was this AI phone that he had. I don't know if this was an actual program that he bought or if he built it himself, but he had an electronic butler.
Yes.
The butler was named Igor, and all he would do was he had a physical phone, but he would basically speak in a speakerphone as if it was an intercom. And so he would call on Igor. Igor would say, "Yes, master," and then he would say, "Dial this number." And visually on a screen, you will see a number pad, and it would dial the number, and he would just literally walk around his room just speaking as if he's in an office as a CEO
and hold his calls too, Rob. Hold his calls.
Dial Brainscan, Igor, no interruptions, and then the phone would literally just say, "Don't disturb me." And
I love this.
Telephone master.
Talk to me.
You have a call, master.
I wanted this phone so bad, and I literally looked this up to the day I died. Like, I still have not seen anything like this phone. How is this possible? It was one of the best things that I've ever seen. Like, it was insane.
I also got the feeling that he was making this, although they never said he was scientific or smart, but it felt like this was something that somehow kids in the 90s could have done if they had money and things, right?
It was one of the best things that I'd ever seen.
It was like a Igor voice, which evidently was played by our Trickster's actor, it said.
Yeah,
I love things like that.
So good. So yeah, the technology aspect of it is definitely ahead of its time in this movie, in my opinion, because we are doing exactly what they think. Now, in this movie, it looks creepy as hell, but I'm telling you, think about it. Like, we are there. So I know that you had questions about the ending and everything. We get this big reveal that everything that he's gone through since committing the first murder was the entire game. The game before he starts said, for the next 2 hours, you are going to experience what it's like to have the ultimate fear. And it turns out that him playing the game, committing the murder, having to get away with it, everything that he encountered, including killing Kyle and going through all this mess to avoid the cops, was all the game.
What is this?
Hello there. You've just experienced Brainscan, the ultimate experience in interactive terror. We're glad you decided to play. Our special state-of-the-art system releases a powerful reality-enhancing signal. We here at Scientific Perception Laboratories, makers of Brainscan and other games, hope you've enjoyed the feeling.
A dream.
However, we understand that reality compression can be
wasn't even
traumatic.
real.
We offer these simple relaxation techniques to calm you down.
And you get sort of a hint of this at the end because the cop suddenly shows up out of nowhere to kill him. And the moment that he is shot and he dies, he wakes up from the game. So when he wakes up, you find out it's still that exact same night where Kimberly throws her party and when he first turned on the game.
Yes.
And he had just played one round. And so in the beginning, Kyle even says, like, there are reviews on this. Somebody had an aneurysm for playing this. So he was like,
sure bet they did.
Hopefully you didn't play this game.
It's good to see you, Kyle. I missed you. I love you.
Hey, man, are you okay?
Yeah, I'm fine, man.
Good. Listen, it's a good thing you didn't order that brain scan tape, man. I saw something on the news about it. It's like hypnotic or some shit like that. No, some kid in Texas was watching it, and I think he had an aneurysm. And I think his eyes exploded, too.
So we find out that it wasn't all real. What do you think about this revelation? Did you figure it out? Were you okay? Because a lot of people don't like this, oh, it was all a dream aspect. Nobody likes that anymore. What did you think about how this wrapped up?
I liked it because we got Kyle back. Is that bad? And the kid gets to have a normal life, hopefully. And it almost scared him into enjoying life in a way. But yes, I know that the fake out ending does piss people off, but I'm not so sure this didn't happen in a way. I feel like it did happen enough that Trickster gets whatever he gets out of it. So one part of me almost feels like it's supernatural, like it could have happened in a way to me. Some part of me feels like this character went through this, so it's real enough. He felt this horror, he felt this torture, and that's what the game is. So it's not really a trick per se, because like you said, it starts saying, you're going to go through 2 hours of this, blah, blah, blah. So in that case, I don't find any fault in it. Would someone be pissed off? I'm sure, yes. Because people always have to find a reason.
So, yeah, I didn't mind the ending at all. I remember being shocked. I had no idea that this was the game that he was playing. They gave us all the clues that we needed, so it was up to us to really interpret what we heard.
Right.
And for some people may have figured it out, some people may not have, and I'm actually okay with this revelation. His reaction to it was a little off for me, but again, he just went through something very mentally unstabling, and some people just kind of are in this revelation. It was the moments that happened afterwards that gave me a little... So this might be a little bit of a stretch. I got a little bit of A Christmas Carol with this movie.
Okay,
I want you to think about when, towards the end, when he went over to Kimberly's and, he's possessed by Trickster and Kimberly's trying to talk him down. And she's like, I like you too, Michael. I've been watching you. I've been taking photos of you. And she breaks out the folder and shows all the photos like, I've been stalking you too,
she
right?
got a folder, that's right. Can you mention that again? A folder.
But he wakes up from the game. He finds out that it wasn't real. But yet when he goes over to Kimberly's house to ask her out, he finds out that that is true.
I think
she was taking photos of him. Yes. There are photos. And so if you remember in Christmas Carol, Ghost of Christmas Present takes you to the present in somebody else's home. They can't see you, but everything that you see is real.
Yes.
Everything you're seeing happened. And so he technically saw real life. And so to me, totally that's very Christmas Carol. But then just think about how cheery he was. He wants more interaction. He has the balls to live his life and not hide himself in his room. He's happy to see Kyle. He's embracing him. And he's like, that's what happened to Scrooge. His whole outlook changed once he saw what his life was like. To me, it reminds me of A Christmas Carol.
So Trickster really is a hero in a way. He's helping these people, and now the principal might become a horror movie fan.
Well, I wanted to ask if you sort of grabbed anything from this movie. Did you feel that there was a message? Did you feel our character grew up? What was the point of him going through all of this? What did you take from the movie?
And again, I echo what I said earlier. That's why this feels like an adult Are You Afraid of the Dark episode, because our heroes are in or whoever's telling the story is in this horror, and they wake up, but then guess what? There's still a twist that this could have happened. But yes, I love that he actually grew up. That's what I got from that whole conversation with Kimberly and Kyle. And I really do believe that he came out of this a new person. And so I felt like it did give a message. Also that not all these games are going to make people crazy. I mean, that I think is one of the messages. But I think it really did. And now you're adding this whole Christmas Carol thing. Totally. This saved his soul.
So this is where the movie gets a little bit confusing. The film ends with Michael bringing this game to the principal and say, hey, I would love for you to check this out. I want to show this on the next horror club. And for some reason, this principal has enough time to spare for this one kid to play a video game to present it to a class.
Yes. What can I do for you, Mr. Brown?
Well, I have a game I want to show to the horror club.
Brainscan. Yes, well, this should be entertaining.
Yeah, I really think it will. I think you have a lot of fun.
Brainscan.
I'll see ya.
And nothing's really stopping these kids from just watching horror stuff at someone's house. Why do they have to do it at school? But I love the fact of an idea of a horror club, regardless of what these movies you think they're doing to these kids, teaching them about violence or blah, blah, blah. These kids are not out committing crimes and stealing shit. They're in a classroom just after school using all of their free time to watch television. Hell yeah. Let them have their club. But anyways...
Exactly.
He gives him the game and sort of in hopes of him kind of going through the same mental torture that he went through, right? But from this, Trickster appears behind him. The principal cannot see him, but we get a hint that Michael may have seen him. And we don't know if Michael is looking directly at Trickster because Trickster gives him a little salute, but all Michael does is smile. So did he see him? Did he not see him? And if he did see him, is this an indication that the game is definitely real?
Oh, or is he inside Michael too, half possessed, and now he's going to give all the kids in the school this game to play afterwards?
It could be anything. So there's that little confusion. But then as the credits start to roll, Trickster does this over voice and says, wait a minute, aren't you forgetting something? And we are brought back to the literal first images of this movie. As the credits roll, we see the dog who comes through this movie a couple of times. He is the most annoying dog I think I've ever seen in a movie. No one likes this dog. It is the worst dog. I hate this dog. But anyways, the dog is running across a couple of fields, a couple of yards leading to Michael's house. The dog gets to Michael's house. The word Brainscan goes over. But if you watch it again, because maybe you didn't notice it the first time, this is in the beginning. The dog is running. He already has the foot in his mouth. And so when Trickster says, oh, wait, are you forgetting something? They replay the video of the dog running through the fields in the yards with the foot in the mouth. He stops in front of Michael's house, drops the foot on the ground, and then looks at the house, and then that's the end of the movie. And so people are confused as to the timeline of this. If the dog already had the foot, but before he played the game, and then it happens at the end, were they just showing the ending in the beginning? Like, what does it all mean?
That's how I almost took it, but also, was it the dog all along? Was it Agatha all along?
I have no idea, but now people are just kind of like, what part of the game was real? Did it happen in real life? What is going on? If the game reset it, why is this foot? We didn't know. So I'm going to go through a couple of theories, but I want to know what your final take on what you believe to be real, not real. What do you think happened in Brainscan?
I do believe some form of this happened. I don't know if it's in a dream state, if it's in a parallel universe or something like that. I do believe that he lived through whatever this physically in a way. Physically/mentally, however, whatever. Even if it was the hypnotizing thing, I do feel like he experienced something. And then the ending definitely opens up the supernatural aspect that it really did happen.
There is a lot more detail that we didn't share throughout this review, but to give you more context. But what you're saying makes sense. I want to read an insert of a theory that was found on IMDb. It's kind of long, but I'm just going to take sort of the meat of it. And then I have one other theory that I'm going to read you where I'm mostly agreed with.
Okay.
So here's one theory. The whole movie is the game. The whole thing. There's no reality. Okay? The whole movie is Brainscan. We, the viewers, are in essence Michael, right? We went to this movie for 2 hours of fear, and we are watching a video game being played. Michael is a video game character. We are playing the game by watching the movie, just like he does when he puts the game Brainscan in and thinks that it's real life, but it's just the game. The clue would be the dog with the foot in the beginning. If we presume that the dog from the Brainscan game is in the beginning of the movie, was really from the game reality, not real reality in the movie's reality, right?
Right.
Then the whole thing was a game, and that's how the movie lets us know that. That reveal at the end was telling us that we were watching a virtual reality game the whole time, is what they're saying. It's Trickster's voice says, you forgot something, which is directed at the viewer, not Michael or anybody else. So this would imply that we just played the game Brainscan by watching the movie. If you only look at the movie in the context of, is the reality in the movie real or is the game reality real, then the theory probably does not apply to this. Unless you step further back and look at it as if you were the gamer putting in this movie and it's a simulation where we are like Michael's character, viewing it from the point of view, sort of how he does while playing Brainscan. So he finally says, next time you watch this movie, pretend you are Michael and playing Brainscan, not just watching a movie. It would make more sense. So here's one other theory that I found that was different. And this is the one that I've been leaning towards up until today. Michael gave the Brainscan disc to the principal towards the end of the movie. And the principal did tell Michael that he'd preview it, anything that Michael wanted to show the horror club. Thus, the principal was the killer who created the foot that you see in the end. So he played the game, did the murder, cut the foot off, and the dog had it. So the principal's sort of going through the same thing. So see in the end, which would be ironic considering his whole speech about how violence is bad and blah, blah, blah. Unfortunately for him, he's a noob at video games, unlike Michael, and managed to lose the foot to the dog. So probably took him a whole 2 hours as well to complete the game. So let's say the dog got away with it because Michael got the foot back, but maybe the principal didn't. So that's a little bit, I didn't describe it as much as he did. My interpretation is that everything beyond the first murder is fake.
So the first murder did happen.
I feel the first murder did happen. Everything else, fake. I couldn't explain anything more, but I think if time reset or the reality reset or whatever the case may be, I think the first murder at least stuck. I think that's how the game collects its souls or whatever the mission statement is. At least the first murder was committed. Everything else, because everything else was done off screen. We didn't get to see any more kills from the game. We saw him get up when he played the game a third time, but we didn't get to see anything. We didn't see any gameplay. So for me, the first murder happened, everything else fake.
So was it the principal or Michael that killed the first person?
I think it was Michael. Him and I are a little bit different, but we at least think that the first murder actually happened. That is our theory. We don't think the whole thing's fake. We think the first murder at least happened.
Michael really did murder that person then.
In my mind, he did.
So what do you think about that for a character-wise? If he has no idea he did that, is he guilty?
Well, I mean, they didn't find who the killer was, so, you know, you're only a killer if you get caught.
See, these are things, Rob, that I feel like if this was a series, they probably would have explained more or added more mythos to this character. I mean, good or bad. It could be almost like how people take the first Nightmare on Elm Street. Do you like the way the series went, or do you want him to stay this way? But what a shame that there was not a sequel to this.
Yeah.
Can we get a petition going to get the sequel? Can we get Kyle to go around for part 2?
So you sent me a video of a gentleman who is actually trying to get people to petition for a sequel. He believes that there is enough story there to do it again.
Definitely.
I wanted to ask you, do you feel that this movie should be remade? Or do you like how it is an original, unique, in its own time period? Do you feel that this movie should be remade?
Don't touch it. Don't touch it. I feel like this was a 90, like you said, it is so 90s. Unless you do this as you're in Tron and make this like really like Ready Player One, I don't know if this would register with today's. I don't know, it sounds crazy because we're so close to this, but we're not. Like, it's still able to, in this 90s period, we're gonna be like, oh yeah, by then this will definitely be real, you know? Like, I don't know, I feel like it has such a charm of that period.
Okay. Yeah, I think you make some really good points. To play devil's advocate, I just wonder that with all the unanswered questions and plot holes that we got, would a remake be able to satisfy that need of having an understanding of what was going on? I mean, they really don't need to go into detail about what Brainscan is, what the trickster is, like what's the point, but just making a choice or creating more of a viable ambiguity ending that we can talk about instead of just being confused. I'd rather have endings that make sense and we can literally prove that with receipts from the movie. This movie doesn't really give us much to even, make our theories true, right? We're still going out on a limb, but the ambiguity of maybe this, maybe that, I think can be solved, especially with today's technology. we might be able to get more kills. But this movie technically isn't a slasher, so do we make a slasher out of the next one? Things like that. I would still like the psychological aspect of this. I don't think I need to see a bunch of kills, but the idea of channeling and challenging someone to commit the perfect murder or deal with fear that they didn't know that they had and stuff like that, I think that that would be fun, and any excuse to bring the trickster back. I want the trickster back.
That's why I think a legacy sequel would be so smart, because you could answer so many questions. Although a remake could do that for sure, but then we always run into that, how much of this is the original interpretation and how much of this is the remake, writer's thoughts of the original.
I knew you couldn't do it on your own.
Game over. You lose.
Perhaps.
Before we wrap up, was there a scene or a moment, a phrase, anything that stood out to you that you really, really enjoyed? Let's do some highlights here.
The Igor computer, every time that went off, I was just like you, Rob. I was like, wow, this is so cool and funny. Honestly, when Trickster came and put on that band, I can't remember what the hell the band's name is.
That's Primus.
Primus, yes, Primus.
The same band who created the South Park theme song. He turned it off just when it was getting good. I was about to do the headbang, and then it cuts off. I'm like, no.
But to me, that was such a cool moment. And it showed the character, and he's like climbing up on things. And that, anytime he would put like the disc on his finger and have it spin.
Okay, so yeah, that is my favorite scene. That is my favorite scene. He gets the second disc. He is startled by it because he didn't order it, and he trashes it. He breaks it. He's like, I'm not playing it. Trickster comes in and was like, where's the second disc? Let's get this going. He goes, I trashed it. Doesn't that compute? Yep. He's like, it's gone. I can't play it. He goes, you don't want to play it. He goes, no, I destroyed it. And he was like, pish posh. He's like, you've done nothing of the sort. And then he reveals that the disc is still intact and it's spinning on his finger. And then I love it. He grabs it and then he approaches him. He was like, play it. The witness has to die. I love that scene so much. Yeah, he was like, to me, that was the moment that you are in this to the very end. You are not getting away with this. You are just as involved. There is nothing you can do to escape this. You're in it and you're going to play it now. I love that scene so much. And it also brings in the supernatural part of it too. Like,
yes, you can't get away from this.
Yeah, it makes it completely clear we're not just dealing with science. And I just love that moment.
And it's like a game spinning in a drive or whatever they call it.
Yeah. So overall, what do you think of the movie? I mean,
so enjoyable. I'm so glad that Rob brought this movie up. Highly, highly recommend it. And I feel like this would appeal to our audience in a way, honestly, because I think we're quirky and, different and things like that. And I feel like this movie has a personality that is different for the time. It's, again, yes, it is a product of this and that and this and that, but it's refreshing. It's fun. Clearly underrated because it's not on the list of horror icons, unfortunately. So
I don't think this movie is cult status yet, but this is not a 100% horrible movie. There are people who do enjoy it, and I think this movie just resonates to a certain type of person. And so maybe the average person may not understand it. I think a lot of people are going to be so turned off by the acting and the impact of it. And I didn't really get your insight on, our Skeletor, our Langella. I don't know.
He was hardcore. He was something else. He gave gravity to that role, but I was just over that cop, honestly, because he had a grudge from the first moment he saw Michael, even before this.
Yeah, a suspect and whatnot. Yeah, I think the acting turns a lot of people off. I think the unanswered questions may not be a thing. And again, I even recommend going and just downloading a couple of other podcast episodes of this movie and just listening to other people's thing. I want you to hear sort of the bad side of B-side of what people think. Hear how everyone hates it. It is whatever it is, but when you go in and watch it for yourself, and you come to your own interpretation, I swear to you, it like you don't know. You have no idea what you're gonna think. And
I think that's the fun part, right? Like,
yeah.
I think a movie should leave you with some questions, right? That you want to answer, or you're thinking about, like, why did that happen? I think that's a good sign of a good movie. That's okay. Yeah, maybe it's leaving you with a lot of questions, but no, it's enough that you're like, let's rewatch this.
See if this horror movie fits into your taste, and you may be surprised.
Well, do you have any recommendations based on this movie, Rob?
Rob's recommendations.
I do. All right. So if you enjoyed Brainscan, or maybe the idea of it, the concept, or its tone, I don't know, maybe should I say target audience? The 1998 movie Strangeland.
This is Dee Snider, isn't this?
This is Dee Snider. This is a body horror thriller.
Oh my God. The cover used to give me the heebie-jeebies. It's a mouth that's
that's stitched together. Yeah. Yes. There is reminiscence of Trickster in this. It definitely has the heavy metal soundtrack and vibe aesthetic. It definitely deals with that darker side of humanity and that part of the world that's a little hidden. It does talk about vices and addiction and fetishes and things like that. So I think that this movie definitely fits the vibe, but it's also a little cheesy in that aspect too, where the acting is not necessarily its biggest focal point or strength. It's more about getting sort of that story across and its theme. So Strangeland, I thought was great for a horror film. Check, it's very 90s. It's so
Linda
90s.
Cardellini's in that too, right?
I think so. Yeah, I think so, yeah. The next one I'm going to recommend is 1986 Trick or Treat.
Yes.
This is the one with Ozzy Osbourne.
Yeah.
Yes. People look up Trick or Treat, they think Sondheim, they think the anthology Halloween film. No, there was another Trick or Treat movie called Trick or Treat.
Yes,
and it has a rock vibe to it, and definitely
Sammy
fits the
Kerr?
theme.
I forgot the name of the main. Yeah, so good.
This was one of those cover arts that stood out to you walking down the aisle. You always recognized Trick or Treat.
You know what? That is so radical retro. That has to be done at some point.
The last film that I'll recommend if you did enjoy Brainscan is The Lawnmower Man.
Yes.
Dealing with technology in sort of an advanced way definitely leaves you with a lot of questions. Very weird and unique characters. This movie is literally Brainscan in a way. Obviously dealing with somebody who's isolated, sort of
crazier, I feel like, over the top.
It's very crazy. This movie managed to create a franchise for some reason, but Brainscan did not. Now, if you didn't like this movie, I want to recommend some that might scratch that itch that I think were executed a little bit better. Keeping with the heavy metal vibe, I'm recommending Ethan Embry's The Devil's Candy.
Oh, I've never seen this.
Oh my God, Ryan, watch this movie. It's so good. And Ethan is so hot in this movie. People always forget this about Ethan Embry because when you look at him, you see Empire Records and you see this, this slim, dorky little nerd kid. Look this man up. Even in Grace and Frankie, he hides it sometimes. He's always wearing gigantic clothes, huge sweaters. This man has a body. It is insane how sculpted this man is. But he plays a father whose daughter is in some really big stuff. And I think the dad is sort of dealing with a crisis with his artwork. And I won't give away any details, but it really, again, touches sort of the heavy metal side of it. This is what I love about this movie, is that this father-daughter relationship is created sort of in a way that the daughter is not really into a lot of girlish things, and the dad accepts her for that, and they have this bond of just being that rocker, like that edgy sort of family, and the bond between those two is something you don't really see on screen a lot. So I recommend The Devil's Candy. Watch it. It's a very unique film. It's actually really creepy and gives you some really creepy characters as well. So yeah, I like that one. All right, the next film I'm going to recommend purely for the fact that this movie has an amazing soundtrack, just like Brainscan. And by the way, I forgot to mention, the music, George S. Clinton.
Oh yeah, the soundtrack.
The music in Brainscan, the instrumental score,
so
the
good.
theme of the movie, the first stuff that you hear when the movie starts. I'm still playing that theme on my playlist today. I love his music in this movie. It is so good. It stands out. And I think the music in this next movie is top tier for its time in rock music. Queen of the Damned with Stuart Townsend and our beloved Aaliyah. It's a vampire flick, but again, it still, I think, executes sort of that type of audience and that type of vibe, that type of genre very, very well. True. I really, really enjoy Queen of the Damned, but if anything, it's because they have such a really good soundtrack. So definitely watch that movie. And the last one that I'm going to mention does give sort of the mix of supernatural and machine mixed into one. Ghost in the Machine. Do you remember Ghost in the Machine?
Oh my God, yes.
I used to watch this Yes, I used to watch this movie so many times when I was a kid. Love this movie. And what's oddly enough, it stars I forget her name, Karen Allen, who starred in Scrooged, which was based on A Christmas Carol.
Look at this.
Yeah.
Yes, Ghost in the Machine, yes.
Yeah, I believe some serial killer died and ended up being turned into like digital electronic or something and was able to control machine. Yeah, I thought this movie was great. And I think it gives that same mixture of supernatural and technology, but this movie definitely has more of a Hollywood sort of budget or commercial vibe to it, to where this one would be a little bit more accepted as a decent film than Brainscan.
I love that people are listening to the recommendations and actually listening to this. It makes me so happy. So Rob gave us some really, really good ones with this. My goodness, we are closing in on our video game summer, and I gotta say, I think I enjoyed this one of the most out of the entire 3 months that we've done.
That's what I do.
Matter of fact, where can people find you, Rob?
I do have another Instagram page, Rob the Movie Geek. I sometimes will post movie reviews on there or anything geeky of the sort relating to movies or TV. You'll most likely see my recommendations posted via Ryan's podcast Instagram page. So yeah, give us a follow. I have some archive movie reviews on there just so you can get an idea of what my taste is like.
And the Radical Retro Rewind podcast, one word. They are both going to be in the description box below. Thank you again for following along on our virtual journey this summer. And as we close down, we do ask, if you enjoy the show, if you enjoy us, please consider giving us a review on Apple. It really does make a lot of difference. And we are currently, as of recording, at 18, and we do hope to make it to 20 before we're done for this month. So thank you again. Thank you to Rob.
Thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed the movie.
So much so, honestly, I'm thinking about even getting the Blu-ray before it becomes one of those, you can't find it because it's out of print movies. So, as always, Radical Ones, stay radical, and we will see you next week for an all-new episode. Goodbye.
Wait a minute. Haven't you forgotten something?
Okay, so Ryan, I decided to watch the Blu-ray in preparation for this, and I saw a bunch of behind-the-scenes stuff, like interviews and things like that, and I just want to tell this really funny story that I heard from our makeup artist. So there were 2 people who did the primary makeup on this, and they were asked to, do this job or whatever. They were in LA, but they were filming in Canada, right? So they shipped them off to Canada, but here's the thing, you need a work permit to enter the country.
Yeah. Yep.
And so the studio didn't, I think it's Triumph or whatever, they didn't want to get them or work permits. They wanted to save the $100 that it would cost to give them a work permit. So when they got there, they were stopped in the airport and they were questioned as to what they were doing here. What do you need all of this for? And blah, 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 blah. And those 2 were informed or told you were not to tell them that you're working on this movie. Because if you do, that means we have to pay for a work visa and blah, 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 right? Like, you're not here to do do anything. And so the security took both men, put them in separate rooms, and grilled them with questions to see if their stories were straight. Our lead makeup artist stuck to his story. We are not here for a movie. We are just here doing our own thing. We love doing makeup. We're just doing makeup. We like to do it everywhere, blah, blah, blah. And the other guy kind of stood his ground. But eventually, after a couple of hours, one of them cracked and was like, okay, we're doing a movie, blah, 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 blah. He's like, if you guys are doing a movie, oh no, if you're kind of doing a movie and we need to look it up, like, we'll put you in this hotel and it's like really nice, and then we'll figure all this stuff out later. But the lead makeup artist was like, no, we're not doing a movie. He still didn't want to admit to it, but the other guy caved. And so because they caved, they were both arrested and put in jail. And they had to spend overnight with actual criminals, for like whatever. And they spent a night in jail. The very next day, they were, bailed out. They had to fly all the way back to LA, get work visas, and then go all the way back to Canada. So to avoid the $98 it would have taken to get them to work visas, this whole thing cost production $30,000.
You know what? I'm glad it did, because they were cheap bastards.
Can you believe that? $30,000.
Crazy. That is crazy, Rob. That's amazing.